Now I can already feel the F1 gatekeepers not taking too well to this video. We all know how change is perceived in Formula 1, but you know what? Sometimes change can be good, and I'm just going to go ahead and blow up the waters here. Now we all know how far Formula 1 has come since Liberty Media took over back in 2018. Broadcasts have become way more slick with cool graphics and fun things to keep our attention while the race is going on. Drivers have become much more active on social media, except for Sebastian Vettel. And Drive to Survive has done leaps and bounds to make the sport more accessible to the average person, bringing in so many countless people that may have otherwise never even thought about watching the sport or heard of Formula 1. But that just begs the question, is there anything F1 can take from other sports to make it even better? And that's the answer we're going to be trying to answer. Question we're going to be trying to answer in this video. Let's go. And of course, we're going to be taking ideas from sports that are actually successful, things that were brought into that sport that actually worked in making the sport better. But I'm also going to try to keep things realistic because obviously there's some things that if you brought into F1 just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, change number one is coming from my personal favorite sports league in the world. It's the NHL, the National Hockey League. They've got some banging jerseys, and I know they're not the only league in the world to have home, away, and alternate jerseys, but in my opinion, no bias, I'm full disclosure, full bias, I think NHL jerseys are the best looking jerseys in the world. Anyone who's a fan of their own sport thinks their jerseys are the best. Personally, I think NHL jerseys are the nicest, but the main reason I'm picking the NHL is because not only do they have their alternate jerseys, but for this year, the 2021 season, they've introduced what they like to call reverse retro jerseys, where teams are given the space to, take a classic jersey that they've had from the past and kind of mix it up and make it a bit more modern, retro kind of feel. And so many teams came out with some beautiful looking jerseys, my Maple Leafs included. Some of them were duds, but for the most part, we got some pretty things to look at. And this made me think, how could this be brought into Formula 1? Of course, in the past, a plethora of F1 teams have done their sort of one-off retro liveries, like the Ferrari in 2020, the Mercedes in 2019. Very similar vibes to what I'm going for here, kind of reverse modern retro. That's the feel we're going for. But why not, for a one-off race in the season, make it the retro race? I think the 70th anniversary Grand Prix would have been the perfect place for this, but make it whatever track you want, force every single team to come up with a reverse retro livery, kind of pay an homage to the past, and have them all race their classic liveries in one. Like, come on. Tell me that wouldn't be cool to see a whole grid of classic-looking cars in their classic colors at a race. Like, I just think it would be really cool, and it would be very different for us to watch, and it just creates intrigue. I feel like I'm waffling on here, but it would be so cool to see that on the grid. Now, change number two, coming from what I call soccer and what most of you out there probably call football, is of some form of relegation. I can admit, I'm not the most avid follower of the most popular sport in the world. I basically tune into the World and Euro Cup every 2 years and then check out. But I do pay attention, and the one thing I really do admire about soccer leagues in Europe is the form of relegation. If you don't make the cut for the rest of the teams that are also elite ahead of you, you get dropped. Honestly, I wish it was something they brought over here because there's a lot of NHL teams that don't belong in the NHL. You know who you are. But this video is about F1. Let's talk about F1. And I don't know exactly how the system would work. Where would teams go after they've been relegated, and where would the team coming in replace them come from? But I think there is a system there that could be worked out because, let's be honest, there's a lot of teams in F1 also that sometimes feel like they don't really belong, and putting that fire behind them of knowing they could be relegated kind of gives them the incentive to develop the car even further and make sure they don't get knocked by relegation. I don't know how realistic it is. I know at the beginning of the video I said I wanted this to be realistic, but in a perfect world, I think this could actually be key to really making teams develop. I think it'd be cool. Don't shoot the messenger. It's just an idea. Now, change number 3 is coming from the NBA, and it's in the form of the AllStar Game / skills competition. And now I know I'm acutely aware that the NBA isn't the only league to have an event like this, but I quite like the league in basketball as a whole, so I'm throwing them a bone here and putting them into this list. But for those who don't know, the NBA holds their best on best game every single year, 2 teams facing off, voted by fans, best of the best in the world, elite versus elite, and they just basically shoot 3-pointers for the entire game. The final score is like 290 to 250. It's ridiculous, but it's fun to watch. And now I know what you're thinking, Zach, that's exactly what F1 is. Weekend in and weekend out, it's the best drivers in the world facing off against each other. What could you possibly be on about? Well, let me tell you. My idea is a one-off race, no championship implications whatsoever. You put them on a different track that's not on the calendar and put them into something that's not F1 cars. Now hear me out. One thing about the NBA All-Star Game that is the best part of the whole thing is it's just fun. It's not meant to be, intense and stressful. It's just a fun time. All the players are just there having a laugh, having a giggle. It allows us to see their personalities, how they interact with each other. And it's just a fun time to watch. So why don't we put these drivers into go-karts, vote for the teams, like we get to vote who's on what team. We'll still have the 2 teams. There's no high speeds, there's no crazy danger. It's just the drivers at their purest form just having a go on the track. Now I know a lot of you are listening to me just waffle on completely about this whole thing and are saying to yourself, this is the stupidest gimmick I've ever seen in my entire life. This ruins F1. It's the worst thing you could possibly do. Hear me out for a second here. The NBA is it is the best league in the world for marketing its star players. Everyone knows who LeBron James, Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, everyone knows those people because the NBA knows how to market their star players. Not everyone knows who Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo are, even though they're, I would argue, on the same level as those guys in the NBA, but F1 just promotes Lewis Hamilton. They know how to promote him really well, and that's great, but they leave the rest for scraps. And one of the outlets to draw attention to these players is the All-Star Game, because normally these players are just spread out across their teams and they don't really get to interact very much, but once they do, it really helps that marketing department just shove all the marketing to everyone's faces. And these guys in F1 are together every single weekend, and yet they're not nearly on the same level as the guys in the NBA. But now just take what you have and try to elevate it to that next level and get it on more of a global audience so everyone knows who these drivers are, and that's just going to make the sports expansion go just straight up. But there it is, the 3 big changes I would bring in from other sports to make Formula 1 better. I would love to hear what you guys think of my ideas down in the comments, as well as the ideas you have to bring from other sports into our beautiful sport and make it that much better. But there it is, guys, another one done, dusted, in the books. I will see you all right back here next Monday for another video. I hope you all enjoyed watching this one as much as I enjoyed making it. Feel free to lick the stamp and send that subscribe button down below. Drop a big old like if you really liked it, and don't miss the apex.